welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to StreetARToronto and MUSE Arts Health and Wellness Panel Series. My name is Catherine Campbell, and I use the pronouns she and her. And I'd like to start by thanking everyone for joining us today for the second of the panel series. To start us off, I'd like to start by offering a land acknowledgement. We believe as we do this work, we must first commit ourselves and continue on the path of reclamation, healing, and most especially truth. We make a commitment to being an ally, to ask questions, to listen, to learn, to understand our privilege, and to achieve the reconciliation that we all must help to achieve. We strive to form a new relationship with the original peoples of the land, one based on honor, trust, and respect. We acknowledge that the land currently referred to as Toronto is on traditional territories of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Chippewa, and other nations of Anishinaabe, the Seneca, Oneida, Mohawk, and other Haudenosaunee nations, and the Huron-Wendat peoples. Toronto is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Williams Treaties signed with multiple Mississauga and Chippewa bands. The land acknowledgement I offered has been developed based on work with and connections to Indigenous community and partners and artists that we work with across the city with StreetARToronto. I will now pass it on to my colleague, Jason Campbell, who will offer a separate and additional ancestral acknowledgement.
Thank you so much, Catherine, and it truly is a pleasure to be here and share this space with everyone today. My name is Jason Campbell, and I use the pronouns he and him, and I had the great pleasure of working with the StreetARToronto team. And today I'm wearing a gray sweater with a white shirt underneath, and over my right shoulder, you can see a map of the world, and over my left shoulder, there's a window with bright light, natural light letting in and embracing me, which is always fortunate. Though I'm not a person of African descent, I'm committed to continually acting in support of and in solidarity with Black communities seeking freedom and reparative justice in light of the history and ongoing legacy of slavery that continues to impact Black communities in Canada. As part of this commitment, I would also like to acknowledge that not all people came to these lands as migrants and settlers. Specifically, I wish to acknowledge those of us who came here involuntarily, particularly those that brought to these lands as a result of the transatlantic slave trade and slavery. In support of the City of Toronto's ongoing efforts to confront anti-Black racism, I pay tribute to those ancestors of African origin and descent. Thank you very much, and I would like to now pass it back to Catherine.
Thank you, Jason. I'd like to introduce our team members, Carolyn Taylor and Randy Mclean, who are also part of the StreetARToronto team. We're an initiative of the City of Toronto's Transportation Services Division and consists of a suite of innovative programs intentionally designed to showcase, celebrate, and support street, mural, and graffiti artists and artwork throughout Toronto. Our programs and projects are rooted in a set of values that demonstrate the positive and powerful impacts of diversity and inclusion. They foster community engagement and civic pride, add color and vitality to neighborhoods, encourage active transportation, showcase Toronto artists, and contribute to their skills development. They mentor emergent talent and create opportunities for positive engagement amongst residents, business owners and operators, artists, and arts organizations. I'll now hand it back to Jason to introduce MUSE Arts and Paola Gomez. And thank you for having me speak, Paola.
Sorry, I'm just having some technical difficulties here. Thank you so much, Catherine. Working with community partners, MUSE Arts creates spaces for emerging artists from equity seeking to showcase their work, to access opportunities for professional development, and to engage communities meaningfully and actively in hands-on, high-quality arts education, integrated to issues of social justice. In 2020, MUSE Arts partnered with StreetARToronto as part of the StreetARToronto Partnership Program. We were able to create a project to celebrate the 100th anniversary of Rose Court Park. The community mural was painted by Alex Usquiano and assisted by a group of local artists. In design, created with neighborhood participation. We are honored to continue our work with MUSE Arts and look forward to the conversation today. Paola Gomez is a trained human rights lawyer, community organizer, public speaker, community artist, and a writer. Paola is the co-founder and director of MUSE Arts and the creator, director, and producer of Happening Multicultural Festival. Paola's work with refugee and newcomer communities have been greatly recognized in Canada, where she arrived as a refugee. Paola's community arts work focuses on community and peace building. Paola is currently a professor at Centennial College. Please all help me welcome Paola Gomez. Thank you.
Jason, thank you very much for that kind introduction, and thank you to the entire Street Art Toronto team for all the support and all the important work that takes place every single day. We at MUSE Arts are extremely grateful for the opportunity to get to work with you all and having through this opportunity the immense pleasure of getting to know and interact with so many wonderful artists. And today, of course, is no exception. Today we have, and I'm so excited, we have three powerhouses in this panel. I am very, very pleased to let everybody know that we are going to be talking about health and safety in the context of working at heights. And for that, we have a fantastic group of speakers whom I'm going to invite to appear in the screen as I introduce them. So we are going to have a little plan for this conversation. First, I'm going to invite each artist to come and share with us a little bit of their work, talk a little bit of their experience and what it is for them, this concept of health and safety. After, we are going to invite the three panelists, these three very important artists in our city, to talk and discuss the different aspects that they take into account when taking or undertaking these very, very big projects. With this, we intend to share wise practices and the most effective ways in which other artists, particularly emerging artists wanting to go into the field, to be able to be equipped to do this type of work in a way that is safe and that keeps everybody's health and wellness on check. So with any further ado, oh, by the way, I just want to share with you all that we're also recording this this panel that is going to be is going to rest here in this Facebook live, but it's going to also go to our YouTube channel, where anybody that didn't have the chance to be here at 2 p.m. will have an opportunity to hear the artists' voices and also receive their wisdom as well. Feel free to connect. Feel free to ask questions if you wish. You can ask the questions in the comment box below, and we are going to make sure to go back to those questions as the panel progress. We also are having towards the end and before closing the session, a space for the StreetARToronto team to come and share some of their announcements or activities that are coming up. As we all know, mural season is is approaching fast, and we are all very excited. So without any further ado, I would like to start by introducing our first panelist. And I will ask for my colleague to share the screen. And so here it is my pleasure to introduce Stephanie Velaflur. Is a contemporary and visual artist born in Venezuela. She has gained valuable experience working as an arts administrator and production coordinator between the cultural and heritage sector, as well as in the public and private institutions. Stephanie's artistic practice incorporates bold colors with organic graphic lines. She believes that great attention is lent to capturing the organic process of one's life experiences, turning them into healing manifestations. And we invite Stephanie to join us as we welcome you into the space. Thank you so much for accepting the invitation. And wow, what an honor. I just said this before we started, but I feel extremely honored to having the opportunity to get to talk to you about your work, and particularly these huge pieces of work that beautify our cities and that put so much color in our very clear reminders of the talent and skills that are here. So welcome, Stephanie. I would love to hear from you, your comments on relation to the type of work that you do, you know, the undertaking of these huge works, and how that, you know, relates to health and safety. We're gonna start from there, and we're gonna move into deeper conversations after that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I feel so grateful, and it's always a pleasure. I see some of my colleagues here that I've had the pleasure to work with. And again, I'm always super excited and grateful. In terms of the work that I do, working on community engaged projects to large scale murals supporting international as well as national and local artists is pretty much my niche. Health and safety is at the forefront of everything I do, including marginalized groups of people and providing opportunities for youth that are in need of opportunities in the arts sector. I also do mentorship for youth in Toronto that are, again, marginalized and needing support. So I'm always really thrilled and honored and so excited to talk about some of these elements that can help further support emerging artists that are looking to further expand and grow their own practice.
Stephanie, thank you very much for sharing that. What an important contribution that you're doing here, particularly, you know, in this aspect of mentorship. But I also think it is in the aspect of visibility, in the aspect of bringing, you know, women voices as well into this important work. And I would like to start us off by asking you, what, you know, of all those bodies of work that you have, you know, what it is for you, the one that probably represented some challenges when you look into like health and safety, or because of the height. And I was just chatting with everybody that, you know, I'm scared of heights. So these are like huge pieces in which you had worked with on. So I wanted to ask you that question. I'm curious. I'm a curious admirer.
Yeah, absolutely. I think speaking to more of the large scale works, I've had the opportunity and pleasure to work with a lot of different really great artists, nationally, locally, and internationally, one also being Adrian Hills, who's here with us today. Speaking to these large scale projects, I think it really is different from artist to artist in their own personal practice. I kind of like to remain in the back seat and really provide as much support and centering for the artists so they feel like they have what it is necessary to complete and focus on their vision. I think in terms of my learning and understanding of these large scale projects, the first one I did was the Phlegm mural in 2016, which was 8 stories. It was at the beginning of my career as an artist, so I really was very much thrown into the forefront of going from, you know, painting on canvases, doing my own kind of work, to really understanding what it's like to work at that kind of heights. I think when we're speaking about health and wellness and challenges, I think what I learned after that particular mural, that was in August. So we were working in the dead of heat and you know, the strongest time of the sun in summer. Speaking to really honing in on how do I focus on making sure I'm managing my wellness. Particularly after that project, it took me some time after finishing to really get back to myself. I find when you work on these large scale projects, and I'm sure other artists can speak to this on their own, is you feel like you're kind of birthing. It's something that you're really kind of, again, internalizing and manifesting and bringing out into the world. And I kind of really had to step away from it right after I was done, because it was very, very intense. You know, you're putting your body, your spirit, your mind, all of your energy into this space that sometimes it can be quite overwhelming. So from that particular project thereon, I was very keen on, okay, we have to take breaks. We have to make sure that we're honoring, you know, eating right, no junk food on site. You know, when we're working as artists, we're kind of way too focused. And I generally, and I'm kind of like the annoying one that's like, okay, guys, like time for breaks, it's time for good snacks, it's time for wellness. So that thereafter was really important for me in my own practice, and also kind of like bugging other artists, like, this is something we need to do.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And you know, in that answer, you have already given us so much to work with. I think it's extremely important what you're referring to as one of the main purpose of these conversations is to promote precisely that art is wellness, and we recognize that the wellness, you know, is holistic, that the wellness has to do with, you know, with the care that the artist takes of themselves, but also the different factors that are external that also had an impact on that well-being. So thank you so much for that. And for now, I would like to invite our next panelist, who is also, oh my gosh, someone that I admire so much as well, and whose work is fantastic. Adrian Hills is a graduate of graphic design program at Hamburg College with over 10 years of experience. Adrian has established his place in Toronto's modern art community. His style is provocative and inspiring, blurring the lines between graffiti and ultra-realism. Adrian's voice and vision is instantly identifiable. His works include countless portraits and illustrations for magazines and collaborations with the city of Toronto. Adrian has painted the second largest body of work by an individual artist at Young Lord Murals, covering 4,088 square meters. And I'm just give you a moment to take this in and to see these works that are impressive, are monumental in my view. Adrian, thank you so much for being here. What an honor, as I had said before, for all of you before we joined the live streaming. Thank you so much for accepting the invitation. I think your voice here is also extremely important, as this is the space where probably other artists, emerging artists that are looking into the works that had inspired them. To be honest, I see these works, and this type of works is what motivate us at MUSE Arts to continue exploring what it is to produce murals and what it is to bring artists to create murals in the city. And so I have to thank you for that. And so what a great moment to ask you more about your work, and also what is your take on this concept of, you know, health and safety as part of the artist's wellness. Adrian, you are muted.
There we go. Now you can hear me. It's imperative we be consistent and considerate of our own well-being, as well as those that are around us. when we're working at that type of heights, anything falling can, offers a great deal of danger to those on the ground. So it is imperative that we share the experiences that we've had as artists down to the up and coming artists, not just to inspire them to do, bigger and more impressive works, but aware of the dangers that comes with it and how we can take care of ourselves and those in our company.
Adrian, thank you so much for saying that, because I think for us, the community members that walk by and see these monumental pieces that you have to, look up and probably put some distance to be able to admire, not only the composition, but the structure and everything else that goes on. I have so many questions that probably will take a long time to ask them here, so I will ask them in another moment. But that's a process that in itself takes time. And it is a process to be able to reach that, to reach the 4,088 square meters. It takes time that it takes, but also there is knowledge and there is experience and there is preparation that takes place, in addition to the artistic technique, in addition to the qualification to be able to produce these beautiful pieces. So what I'm getting at is that in addition to beauty, on the pieces that are created in the message, there is so much work that is done before that. When you undertook this type of projects, and I'm inviting you to think of your first large project.
Okay.
Do you think of all what is involved in terms of health and safety when you started?
But to be honest with you, as an artist, it's not my primary thing to think of health and safety. But again, this is why we're here, is to really hone in on it, because it is such an important thing. But I'll be honest, it's like when I think of the projects and the size of them, I'm inundated by all the creative challenges that come with it. That's safety is not often the forefront of it. But again, this is why we're here to talk about that. So when it comes to dealing with size and scale, being able to relate your style, my specific style, to a large format takes a great deal of thought process and mapping it out. People often ask how do you scale things up like that. For me, I use the image of the wall of itself and the bricks as my grid. And then I superimpose the image in Photoshop on top of the grid. So it's just a line work, in which case I'm able to make the drawing, the concept to scale accurately as intended. And it's a great challenge, and I love that challenge to do things on the edge and at that extreme.
Thank you so much for sharing that, and I also appreciate very much, your very straightforward answer and the acknowledgement of the fact that as artists, many times we overlook at these concepts of self health and safety, and
Sure.
probably we may even look at them as barriers to be able to do what we're dreaming of. But how important is to take health and safety, seriously, and how it is that even for us to be able to engage in this type of projects, we really need to go through a process of, even to an education process, the education process of one thing is what I dream of, and another thing what is possible based on health and safety, and this one cannot be compromised, but also the education that has to be that we get through different types of certification. So Adrian, thank you so much for sharing this with us, and I'm definitely looking forward to the rest of our conversation. I will love to invite now our third panelist, and I'm inviting to this conversation Alexander Bacon. Alex was born and raised in Toronto. He started out as a graffiti artist in the 90s as a teenager before becoming today's renowned mural artist with over 20 years of experience. Having as main medium spray paint, Alex's work has evolved to deconstructing traditional graffiti spray painting techniques to create an abstract graffiti style while maintaining letter form. He's inspired by Toronto, one of the most dynamic and influential street art scenes in all of North America, as well as daily interactions with it. Adrian, Alex, thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much for accepting this invitation. And wow, what an honor to have you here as well. I already said it many times. I'm like a small child when they see like the superheroes in Disney World. So I'm not in Disney World. I'm seeing my heroes here in the graffiti, in the street art scene of Toronto. So thank you so much for being here. And I would like to invite you to answer, the same question. What it is for you to think of, the magnificent pieces of work that you get to put out in these large scale murals, and in contrast of health and safety, how you have done this for 20 years and how that idea has evolved.
Well, thank you for having me here. It's quite the honor. As far as health and safety, it's something over the years that I've taken a lot more seriously. Especially for myself. I mean, painting is very laborious, and it's one of those things that people think, oh, it looks like fun, you're just doing art, but at the end of the day, you're using your mind and your body all day. I think my biggest take from it using spray paint is making sure to wear a mask. It's really easy to take off the mask, and before you know it, you're painting for 3-4 hours without it, and then you have a headache or you feel weird. And so I think health and safety is definitely important. I like to make sure I take breaks, stretch. I had a little bit of a shoulder problem myself from overpainting, so I learned some special stretches from a doctor that helped me at the end of the day. And I work with like a lot of younger artists that I mentor on the projects and stuff, and so I try to share my knowledge with that kind of stuff as well, and make sure when we're on site that we do everything by the book when it comes to using the lifts and that stuff, because there's so many things that can go wrong, even from just like banging the lift against the wall and stuff. So and power lines and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, there's definitely lots to think about, and health and safety does come paramount before anything else when you're working on a big project.
Thank you so much for sharing that perspective, and also as well as to share, this very personal aspect as well of the fact that as it is right now, there is an impact on your health of the type of work that you do, right? And so it is so crucial that we actually hold these type of spaces where we invite other artists, particularly those who are thinking in undertaking large scale projects to look into the different aspects to make sure that their well-being is checked. I would like to ask you, when you look back, when you look at the work that you have done, the beautiful pieces that you had painted in this city, that the city of yours that inspired you as well. So what do you see? What do you see in terms of what moves you in what you have learned through that process of taking care and learning of taking care of yourself?
So I think it's the amount of years doing it, and as I've gotten older, you realize you're not immortal. When I was younger, I was kind of wild, just doing whatever. And then as you get older, you start realizing that you have to take care of yourself if you want to be around. And I don't know, especially in the spray paint community, it just seems that a lot of younger middle-aged artists, they don't stick around very long. They die young from overexposure to paint and that kind of stuff. So those are things I definitely consider, because I definitely want to be around. But as far as like the art end of things, like, and the beauty, I'm inspired by everything, like the colors. I wake up in the morning, the sun, you know, the night lights in the city. I mean, I'm just inspired by beautiful things all around me, and I try to, you know, incorporate it in my paintings and keep trying to push forward. And I'm constantly learning. Even, it doesn't matter how long you've been doing this. I hope that other artists as well are always looking to keep growing as an artist.
Thank you so much for saying this, and what a great segue for you know, to start the conversation of health and safety while working at heights. And I will invite our other two panelists to join us on the screen, as you know, we together explore the different aspects that as an artist want to take into account when working at heights, when, you know, working with you know, high platforms, when working on, you know, swing stages and all these other elements that you have to take into account when you are creating those large pieces. And so Adrian and Stephanie, if you want to join us, that will be great, because with this, I would like to, and since Alexander is here, I will definitely invite any of you to answer this question first. And so my first question is, how do you approach a project from the health and safety perspective? When you are there, you know, either that you look at, you know, the wall and you see how, you know, how big the wall is or how tall the wall is. And so what do you do prior to start the work? So what is your process to take care of yourself and to make sure that those who work with you are also you know, aware of what are the potential risks and hazards of the spaces where you're going to work?
So my process when I go, I always bring extra masks because I find that some of my assistants, sometimes they don't bring the masks, and I'm pretty strict with that stuff. I'm like, put your mask on. So I'll have all the masks. I'll even have extra lanyards for people and the straps just in case. We always double check that we're all tied up properly. These are really important. I make sure that all the equipment has gasoline or propane or is fully charged, whichever equipment you're using. And I actually listen to the manual, you know, and the book when it comes to that kind of stuff, just to double check all the equipment, because the last thing I want to do is get stuck, you know, a few stories up. And then, so now that's the equipment check. And then I make sure that the wall's ready to paint. So I'll make sure that it's either dry, weather's good, we don't have incoming storms and stuff like that before we start, because the paint's got to dry or it's just going to make a mess everywhere. First stage is priming the wall. Second stage would be sketching it up, which I would say is probably arguably the most important step in doing a mural, is getting the proportions up. So that process, that step there, I would say is probably the most important. And then after that, it's just paint by numbers and just follow your reference and your sketch that you have and try to complete it in a timely fashion. And don't overwork yourself. That's something I learned. I used to go and do, you know, 10-hour days thinking, oh, I'm going to get a good head start. And before you know it, you're beat. And so I would always recommend, don't overwork yourself, you know, 6 to 8 hours, make sure you have a break and you'll be good for the next day.
Thank you so much. And probably you saw me smiling here because like that part, like, it's like you were talking to me. Don't overwork yourself, you know, don't do more than 10 hours because you want to, you know, you want to achieve more than what you actually should be doing right now. Even if you have the energy, it's a matter of also of taking care of yourself and being totally alert, right? So thank you so much for sharing that. Such a valuable insight that you're giving us here. I would like to ask either Steph or Adrian to follow and see what are your comments on this question that I propose. Adrian, you are muted.
Can you go through the question again? Can you repeat the question again?
Yes, absolutely. So what do you take into account before going to, to do the work, or when you are there, when you are undertaking these large projects?
I'm really cognizant of where the piece is going to be placed and how it impacts the environment around it and how people are going to view it. When you're working at large scales, you're often kind of just getting inundated again with just the size of it, but you got to keep in mind how it impacts the viewer. I come from a graphic design background, and user interface and how things impact our users or the viewer is critical. So I take that into account when I do my designs. I always start off with the design stuff and just drawings. Drawing is almost the basis of everything I do. Before, that's why I always refer to myself as an illustrator first, because that's really where my passion is and where everything kind of stems from. And it's just kind of my place of play. So it comes up with concepts and ideas. I always have tons of books of things that I've played with or ideas that I've visited, and sometimes I am able to go back into those cataloged concepts and pull up things for current jobs. So it's just a great way to just notate and come up with ideas just to work on sketches. So that's definitely the first place I go. And then thinking again of how it fits into the space, how it fits into the project requirements in terms of how it's supposed to impact or what its objectives are. A lot of my work tends to deal with music and musicians. It's just where my heart is. I'm a DJ, I love music. And when I'm painting those big murals, I'm constantly listening to the music of the artist. It's almost like their spirits are there. It really is something else. I have various videos where as I'm painting, I'm dancing to Dizzy Gillespie or whoever it is. It's Rush, or it's Gatto, or it's Kathy Young on the big murals, where it's really, it's such an infused experience when you're doing stuff that is built off of somebody else's artistry, music being that case. I always like to refer to things like art, visual arts decorates space, and music decorates time. So as you're working along, you can have music playing. And then just getting to, the colors, sketching, then going to colors, and then having your rendering or your concept at hand as you're painting away. And much like Alex said, it becomes a bit of like painting by numbers. And then, you're at it and you're having fun, and the dream comes alive.
Thank you so much for sharing. How about you, Steph?
I think kind of where I stand between these gentlemen is my focus is more on the administrative and production point of view, and really stepping away from the creative process. A lot of these large scale projects, I've had the opportunity to kind of stand back and watch and be there in order to help facilitate and provide whatever is necessary for the artist. I actually, during my practice, decided to take a year off, and I worked for Steps Public Art as an art administrator and production coordinator. I didn't do much creative work at that time, and my focus is really on understanding what are the needs as far as making these kind of large scale projects work to their best capacity. I think from project to project, I've learned different things, but really understanding as an artist, what certifications do I need? One being working at heights in your fall protection, understanding the kind of equipment that you need to work on the various different types of projects, whether it's a swing stage or a boom lift or a cherry picker, they're all quite different. So for me, it's really a matter of, I'm the stickler when it comes to health and safety. Really, for me, when I'm working on a project, I'm very keen on everyone's safety in the context of, at the end of the day, checking our lists, checking the equipment, making sure that our harnesses are put in a safe, dry place where they're hung up, they're not being on, thrown on the floor, making sure that all of the, aerosols on the swing stage are organized and in place, kind of the work that, not a lot of artists really want to pay attention to. I am an artist as well. However, I think it's really important for me to make sure that the production of things are a lot smoother and it just feels more comfortable for the artist. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that as well. As someone who produces, I feel very often that role, the role of being the strict, the one that follows with all those little checklists that to make sure that everything is there. So the other creative people that is on site and the other artists that are involved in the project remain safe in that everybody can go home at the best of their of their ability. So thank you very much for sharing that as well. And I think you also start as in a very important concept, and is the realization that for artists to be able to undertake these large projects, these large-scale projects, there is importance of certification. And there are, as Stephanie was referring to, there are different things that need to happen for someone to be able to go into the different equipment and do the work when being in such a heights. And I would like to invite any of you who would like to start us off with what type of certification do you have to acquire? What was that certification that you didn't know that it existed and that you have to start off to be able to go that high? Because I also understand that this has an impact at many levels, not only from the perspective of, yes, I'm capable of doing the work, but I also know that insurance are way higher depending how high you are and how much years of experience you have. And I think this is very important and relevant information for the artists that are, coming up doing this type of work. And as we approach mural season, right? So talking about the fact that knowing this also will have an impact on the insurances that they will buy. And I don't want to focus on money right now. That will be a conversation of later on, but what certifications have you gotten and why you got them? Like, why was it important for you to get them? And who would like to start? Go ahead, Adrian.
So initially, back in like 2016, 17, you didn't have to have, all you had to have was your working at heights and your swing stage certification in order to work on a swing stage. But as of late, they've made it so that you have to also learn how to set up the swing stage as well. So it's the ins and outs of it. They've kind of made it a bit more strenuous. I wanted to add that when I am painting, I do take wearing a mask very seriously, and that involves having to shave my beard in order for the mask to work effectively. So just little things, little details, cosmetic things, I guess you have to make changes in order to stay safe. Drinking lots of water is essential. It's really keeps you going and keeps you hydrated, especially in those hot days. Just little details.
That's so important. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I would like to invite Stephanie to, and Adrian, you can stay here in the screen. So Stephanie, please share with us what certifications you got. And I really, I feel very related here to what Stephanie has to say, because I'm also in the production part. So I am the one that is bagging the artists, like, get this certification, do this. And so thank you for being there, voicing that part as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say first is you're working at heights. So I started in 2016. My first working at heights or large scale project was a swing stage project. Working at heights, you need and fall protection. And then thereafter, you can get your swing stage operation. There you kind of learn the ins and outs of all of the equipment. Like Adrian was saying earlier, now they kind of they kind of teach you a little bit more of how to put everything together in your practical. So you would do a theory, you do a test, and then you do a bit of practical, depending on what organization you get your certification from. They will kind of train you and teach you and how to go up, how to go down, and how the different pieces work. And then for aerial heights, which is a different certification outside of a swing stage certification, this would be for your scissor lift, a cherry picker, a boom lift. This is different. Again, you can do a theory test and then you would have to do your practical. What is required in terms of equipment is you need absolutely a harness. Invest into your own harness, making sure that your harness is kept in a safe, dry, clean place. Oftentimes, because we are using lots of different kinds of material, especially paint, it's really important to always check your harness, check all the different seams, make sure there's no damage or no, spots that are, the thread is coming out. Again, I'm kind of the knowing one that does all of the checking. But for me, it's at the end of the day, I want everyone to be at their ultimate best. I want them to succeed, have an amazing time while they're doing what they love to do and be safe. I actually have a harness here so I can show you. I would say just in terms of like with respect to my own stuff, these are personal things. When you buy your own equipment, everything, you should never buy used equipment. You want to buy everything brand new, but this is just to kind of give a sense of what it looks like.
This is fantastic. Thank you for sharing this.
Yeah, that you would use on a swing stage or on any aerial lift equipment. And what this is actually here, this is called a D-ring and this goes at the back. You want to have here this, I know Alex was saying this before, but this is called a lanyard and this is what you attach to your equipment. And with aerial heights, working on cherry picker, boom lift, scissor lift, you want to attach the lanyard to the back of your equipment and then you want to attach yourself to the equipment. And then for a swing stage operation, you want to use a rope grab. So this is the kind of equipment, you don't want to use this one. This is an old used one, but this is just to give you an idea. The rope grab attaches to your lifeline. Your lifeline is attached to essentially the roof of the building. And then you want to attach your lanyard to your rope grab here. But these are just kind of like some quick things as far as equipment. Depending on your employer will provide these for you. If you are your own entity in business and you want to operate, of course, you want to get commercial liability insurance to cover yourself. And then you want to make sure you have all of your certifications and all of your own equipment just to work on other projects and have, handy.
Thank you so much for sharing this and, and for sharing the visuals of it, like how these elements look like as well, because sometimes, we talk about certifications and we tend to talk about certifications in the context of do an online thing that you wait 15 minutes and then you get a quiz and then you get a little paper that tells you now you are qualified to do this work. So the seriousness of this work and the seriousness of and the importance of having the certifications as a way of protecting every single person that is working on that mural that then the rest of us get to enjoy, but it has to have all this work prior. So I'm going to give the spot to Adrian before going to Alex. Go ahead, Adrian. You are muted.
Keep doing that. I was going to point out that lanyards nowadays, currently they can't be anything longer than 1 foot. 3-foot lanyards are no longer accepted.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. I have a question that is coming to me now as I'm inviting Alex to join, and is after which height you are asked to wear a harness. How high you need to be to start considering that you need to have the harness with you.
You know, I did the course just a few years ago, like the refresher, but I believe even if you're in the bucket, like not and just driving it, you have to have a harness on. So as if you're using any sort of equipment, you have to have that harness on, even if you're on the ground. So yeah, I mean, generally when I get inside of it, first thing I do is I clip myself onto it. So yeah, I think it's like if you're driving it, even on the ground, you have to have it on. I also was reading some study saying that even if you're doing a small wall, you're recommended to use a small lift rather than using ladders, because there's more accidents that happen on ladders than any kind of equipment that people use. So that's just a cool, interesting stat that I learned when I was taking the course, that basically ladders are extremely dangerous and cause more harm than good. I mean, heck, I've even stepped off a ladder thinking I was on the last step, and you know, you twist your ankle a little bit. So, and that's just like 2 feet off the ground. So, yeah.
Alex, thank you for referring to this. As a matter of fact, last month's session also touched on, you know, how important it is to put attention to the equipment and not to shy away from having proper equipment in order to save. You know, sometimes we try to save money, you know, little pieces here, little pieces there, and we compromise this very important thing. From what I'm hearing Steph saying about, you know, these harnesses are yours, and so make sure that you buy new stuff, make sure that if it's ripped, you replace it. To probably the scaffold will be more expensive, the actual 8-foot ladder that you prefer to use, but the 8-foot ladder is way more dangerous for you to work in than what the scaffold will be. And so I think that's also a very important message that you're leaving us with. I would like to ask Alex, and then I'm gonna go back, you know, Alex, Stephanie, and then Adrian. How do you go about searching for these certifications? Like, how do you know where to go to get the certification? And is it that every time that you do a work, someone is asking for this?
Yeah, so generally every single time you do any kind of proposal, they want to make sure that you have all your certifications. They have to be renewed every 3 years. So you do a refresher course, and then you have to have insurance. And that's one that caught me by surprise, because I didn't know about that, but it makes sense at the end of the day that you need insurance. I'll give you an example of one time where I had to use my insurance. I was using a sprayer, high winds kicked, and I ended up getting a little bit of paint on somebody's car. And I felt really bad, but insurance covered it for me. So yeah, but when you travel, this is another thing, is you could be certified here in Ontario, but that doesn't mean you're certified somewhere else. And I'll give you an example. I was in BC doing a mural, and I had to get this card, which is a fit test. Okay. And this one is basically to make sure that the respirator works 100% and allows you to breathe properly. And I just thought that was really interesting, that I couldn't even start my mural. I was all ready to go. And, you know, some inspector came by and he's like, let me see your fit test. I'm like, well, here's my working at heights. Here's this and that. I'm like, I don't need it. I don't know what a fit test is. Anyhow, long story short, I had to go get the test done before I started the project. So if wherever you're working, make sure that you're following whatever laws in whatever city you're in.
Thank you, Alex, for this. What an important point. You know, I'm hearing that in addition to the certification, is to make sure that the certification is valid in the space or in the territory where you are actually creating your mural. And I'm sure that this is true not only for Canada, but for other international projects. Something that I recognize is that when artists do this, these large scale murals. They are also open to several collaborations, and this type of work takes you also internationally. So thank you for saying that and making reference to that important point. And I wonder, Stephanie, if you have something to add to what Alex had mentioned.
Yeah, I think kind of just to touch on, Adrian touched on this briefly as far as the equipment goes. They always evolve and change. So it's really important to understand at the particular time of your project that all of your equipment is up to date. There are certain mandates and specifications as far as what is required. I know that also wearing a hard hat on a swing stage and having steel toe boots is also a necessary thing that for a lot of us artists, because they can be uncomfortable and in the way, that we don't like to use them, but they are very important. But yeah, just kind of, understanding again, what Alex was saying as well, province to province, what are the needs from where you're going to be working and for that particular project. I know as an administrator, working for Steps Public Art, we were very keen on building a project manual. So prior to the projects, we, for every individual person that was on the project, we had everyone's certifications on site, available for an inspector who would come in if necessary, as well as, any other creative things, the drawings, the designs, and that was accessible and available at all times, near the site or in the lift, for the artist or the production manager coordinator.
Wow, what important piece of information, Steph. I think the fact that those manuals are created ahead of time also not only allows planification, but also gives an overall view of what are the elements that are taken into consideration, including the potential hazards that the space or the site could have, right? So what an important piece of information for all the artists that may be looking into doing, a large format in working on heights in upcoming months. Adrian, anything that you would like to add? You are muted, Adrian.
I'll get this one of these days. I was saying that you get surprise things that come up, but things you should know, but you kind of overlook. For instance, even if you're working on something as simple as scaffolding, and you're going maybe 3 tiers up, you need to have a ladder on hand, an 8-foot ladder, just to get onto the thing, because it's a mandatory thing. I've had situations where, an inspector insisted that I shut down for the day until I got one of those in place. It was simple, but I think he was just kind of looking out for our best interests. I've also, even working on the big murals, we decided to put a banner on the promotional banner on the swing stage, thinking it would have been cool. It was a great way to, let people know what was happening with the mural or with the project. And it became a big sale for us. So up there in the high winds, we were just blowing around because the thing was just catching the wind. So having to cut little half circles into it in order to let the wind through, little things like that just come up. But it makes the experience interesting. That's for sure.
Definitely extremely interesting. Everything that you all are sharing, I think one wouldn't even imagine that all that happens, and it's what needs to happen prior to the beautiful pieces that you gift all of us that get, that are so privileged to see the work. Adrian, and I would probably want to ask you this question. Do you feel comfortable as an operator from the moment you started, that you went into one of these equipments? You feel like, okay, this is my son, or it took you time to feel comfortable and confident about their use?
Well, I keep on saying how, safety is something becomes overlooked. And I say that only not because I'm careless, but simply because you become so involved with the painting as you start. Sometimes I'm like on, 10 feet off the ground and I'm so into it. And then I look down and I'm like, oh, I'm only 10 feet off the ground. And then you're 200 feet off the ground. And then you get this vertical moments where you're like so caught up in the painting, and then you look away and you're just like, holy smokes, I'm up here. But, you get taken away. When I'm painting, I'm like, I travel away from where I'm at right now. And it's such a spiritual experience that you lose track of time and space. You're just in there. And safety becomes that much more important when you're like, got to be aware of where you're at and what's going on around you. I think that's how Gaudi died. I think he was like backing up, checking out one of his works, and then went over the edge, and that was his demise. So being aware of your spatial surroundings is critical.
Adrian, something that is coming to my mind right now, and that I always talk about with my team from the production perspective, is communication. And so how important is that communication, and how important is for an artist to make sure that they are not working by themselves? Because you are also talking about, the ritual that happens for the artists when they are actually painting their piece. One can zoom out and start painting, but so what is around that, or who's around, making sure that other elements are taken into account to continue being safe while doing that very important work. So thank you for saying that, and I can assure you that none of your words are coming out as you being careless. On the contrary, it's coming from what I'm receiving is someone who's being very honest about them and being mindful about the many aspects that go into place when you are creating something that actually Stephanie had said at the very beginning, it takes a lot of emotional, physical, and spiritual energy. And then you also have to be looking at what is happening to you right in this space. That is double task. It's like asking your right side of the brain and the left side of the brain to work at the same time, and is how many people are around you to be able to support that process. Thank you so much for saying that, and for bringing this perspective, which I think is of extreme use for all the artists and people involved in mural production that may be connected right now, or that will connect. Again, go ahead, Adrian. You wanted to say?
I was going to add to that. The first time around when I did the big mural, just a matter of being self-aware and knowing exactly the challenges that were for me and what I was capable of doing, and just a matter of getting secure. I actually hired a professional swing stage person by the name of Mike, who spent over 8 years working with William Lazos, he's done like hundreds and hundreds of large-scale murals across Canada. He's like the guy. Mike's main purpose was just to make sure I didn't hurt myself, and all my safety concerns were being addressed as I was painting. So Mike's job was not really to paint; it was just to make sure that I was painting in a safe and comfortable environment. Yeah,
thank you for adding that. What an important aspect that it has to be taken into account. Stephanie, how about you? Did you feel like, okay, yes, I'm ready to operate this thing from the get-go, or it took you some time to get ready?
Well, I think a lot of, speaking specific to swing stage projects, it's really collaborative. Simply because you're relying on one other person in order to operate the stage, because one person is at one end pushing, it's like an elevator, pushing the button to go up, and then one person on the other end is pushing. So I think it's really a matter of your connection with the artist and the person, and really that keen communication and eye contact and understanding the body language and energy of the artist. I think what was really great about what Adrian said is he hired someone specifically to kind of be there when it comes to health and safety. And I think for a lot of artists, we have this tendency to just go into our own space and world and forget that we have that other side of our brain that needs to be super conscious and present. I know for me that I try to have a really good balance of both. I enjoy the creative process, but I'm also really keen on making sure that the artist is just well and, again, enjoying what they're doing. I know one particular time working on the St. Clair mural with Flem, we were pretty high up. And I noticed that before he got into the stage, he had kind of put his hand on a piece of equipment that when you go up, if you push that piece of equipment down, you won't go back down. So we were already all the way up there. And instead of freaking out, and I knew that the stage wasn't going down at that point, I remembered that, again, we had that manual and that guide in the swing stage. And I called the swing stage company and I asked, for guidance, what is it that I need to do? And I just followed their instructions, and we managed to use the emergency in order to get us back down. And I remember when I saw his face, he was like, I said that we're not going down, the stage isn't working. And he was like, what? He was freaking out, but I just kind of let him know it's okay, we have it under control. And it was fixed in a matter of 10-15 minutes. But yeah, I think, having those emergency contacts are really important in there. Open communication. I know we also did have walkie-talkies. So sometimes when we had people down at the bottom, we would leave a walkie-talkie with somebody if the phone died or we didn't have a way to contact. But yeah, in your local fire department, all your, emergency contacts are super important. But yeah.
That is so important, Stephanie. Thank you for sharing the aspect of emergency, the emergency proceedings. What are we going to do in case of an emergency, and being able to share that with everybody that is working on the project. What an important aspect. And while I'm thinking of those aspects that you have shared so wisely, I'm also thinking of the way in which our creative minds work, and the interest in putting the piece there, so to do the artwork, and how many things we may overlook. And I love the idea of the manual. I love the idea of communicating, of putting all these emergency proceedings in place, letting everybody know that if something unexpected were to happen, that's also something that has been taken into account. And we have people asking some questions, but before those questions, I would like to hear Alex comments on this topic of how prepared you felt the first time you were an operator, or that you operated one of those machines that will actually be such an amount of support for the work that you do.
I'll be honest with you. I didn't have much difficulty at all. I was very confident with the lifts. I think I started using just the basic scissor lifts at a fairly young age. When we were doing big graffiti walls and stuff, we would just rent them and whatever. And this was way before you even needed any kind of working at heights and stuff. And I've always been just like one of those people, like when I got my driver's license, I mean, I already knew how to drive. It was just instinctual for me. But I am afraid of heights, believe it or not. I always get really nervous going really, really high up. Even if I'm strapped in, whatever, I'm always nervous. I just end up concentrating on the wall. I guess that's the only way, it does. And I'll never forget the first time going up really, really, really high. I was like, holy smokes, this is up there. And it's a little more wobbly. The machine is a little bit more touchy up there. So the small movements make it jerk a little bit more. Those things are definitely, can be a little bit unnerving. My suggestion would be for anybody that's just like starting out, go slow. Even get some more experienced guys on your team for the first time that you're using it. I would say even first couple times until you get confident with it. I was fortunate enough to have a lot of friends that were doing larger murals and stuff. So if I was ever unsure about anything, or how something worked, or how it felt, or what to do, I would always lean on those guys for that. I think the one thing with this industry, doing murals, is there's no real school you can learn this kind of stuff from. you do really need to have a mentor and learn that way, or just volunteer on projects and stuff like that. So that would be my suggestion for people starting out, is really get an experienced guy on your team for the first couple of times, and until you're confident.
This is so important, and you all have touched on such important aspects, and I feel that this conversation could be way more than 1 hour and 30 minutes. We could be here for 2 days. I'm just giving ideas to Street Art Toronto. We can be here for a long time, having more and more conversations about these very important aspects. I'm going to refer to a couple of questions I have here from people that are looking, that are listening to you and watching what you are sharing through the live streaming. And someone is asking a very important question about cost. Something that as artists, we tend not to look at because we really want to see our work up, right? Like we want to see the work somewhere. So how is this, all these certifications, all this equipment that you have to acquire, how all this impacts the cost of the mural that you are creating, and also how you end up determining what that cost is. We have identified this being one of the main issues that, especially for mural artists that are just starting, not knowing how to determine the cost of the mural, but definitely having to have certifications, buy new equipment, rent from a good place, the machines, etc., will add up, and so the cost will be higher. So any comments on that? How you determine this type of things for yourself?
That's an excellent question, and I get it asked quite often, even by experienced artists that are just starting to get into murals. Murals are expensive. Equipment costs a lot of money. Paint costs a lot of money, and your time and design time sitting at the computer or at your drafting table working on stuff is all comes into account. When you're starting out, you kind of almost have to do things for a little bit cheaper until you work it out, until you're a little bit more established and can start charging more. But I would find a good square footage rate on a wall and try to keep your equipment cost at about 10% of the entire mural. That's what I would do. Some people would cut into their budget a little bit more, but I personally, if I'm doing a private mural, I try to say, okay, 10% of the budget's going to be my equipment and paint. Sometimes it goes a little bit more, depending if you run out of paint and stuff like that. And find a good square footage rate. I would say for beginners, maybe $20 a square foot is a good start. And people working for corporate and larger companies, I would say $40 to $50 a square foot is a fair rate. When you're getting into murals and stuff, also, it's a lot of the times people don't foresee, a picky client, for instance, that wants a design done, and you get caught up in weeks of doing revisions and stuff like that. So I would say it's really important to get a clear vision from a client first, and then at the same time, what you do is you say, okay, after we get like a mood board together and we get a couple ideas out, you give a couple revisions for free, and then anything after that you charge, or else people can just keep going and going and going with the revisions and stuff. So just keep it professional, have people sign off on the artwork. A lot of times also with painting big murals, we can't match Pantones when you're working, like, let's say with Coca-Cola, and they're like, it has to be this exact red. If you're using, sometimes you could color match that stuff, but if you're using spray paint, you have to use the closest. So yeah, a cost comes into play with all of that kind of stuff, and it is expensive. I mean, just a lift itself, I think, is around $2,000 a week and then it gets cheaper longer. So it's an expensive process.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that and for for giving those very practical elements as well. I'm pretty sure this is being much appreciated. Questions keep coming here, so I'm going to hear from Stephanie and Adrian, and then I'm gonna ask a few more questions before we start wrapping up. Where did the time go? We just started. Go ahead, Stephanie.
I think there's a couple things around projects that I'm a bit more keen on, especially for emerging artists and artists that are moving into mural art making. I think understanding whether it's a private project or a community project, we really need to assess and evaluate what are we going to, budget for those projects. More than anything, I think agreements. Having proper agreements set in place and going over those finer details that we kind of don't pay attention to. I think before moving into a project, honing in on how much time, research, drawing, detail, energy that's going to take before you actually move into the project. I think a lot of times as artists, we gloss over the production part of it. Ordering your materials, ordering your lift, those are things that you need to pay yourself for as an artist. So I think generally before you move into the actual production, a deposit or some kind of question about what kind of percentage am I asking beforehand in order to facilitate the needs of this project prior to me actually producing the piece. I would say for equipment, my focus as far as like swing stage, lanyards, and harnesses, I would budget like at least $1,000. Again, it's based on preference. Everyone has, what is comfortable for them. I know for me, I like the best of the best. So I want to spend on my, stuff that's going to keep me safe, as much as I can manage and afford. But I think those kind of things within a project is really where I start to focus on.
Thank you so much for that. How about you, Adrian? Adrian, you're muted.
I'm consistent. What I was saying is that budgeting always comes into question, and sometimes, or far too frequently, I get third parties that will contact me, marketing companies. That most recently I've had like a company reached out to me to do a mural project, and then I gave a code for it, and then I find out it's Google, and you're like, oh man, I should up the code a bit. So you got to stay consistent in whatever you set it as. Keep it across the border, because it's just a matter of integrity. You don't want to start wavering and start fluctuating your rates. You sound kind of like really wishy-washy and unprofessional. There's also the golden handcuffs, which is referred to as, friends and loved ones who will reach out to you for mural projects or creative projects because they're close to you. And you do have to maintain your professionalism even in those instances as well. So that's my thoughts.
Well, all that is extremely important, and I definitely think we all appreciate very much that you're giving, all this information and all these experiences that you all had to be able to inform or to provide information to the new and emerging artists or those who are going into mural making. We have here a consistent question, and is all this about certifications sounds extremely important. How do we get them? Where do we need to go to get them? Who should we contact to learn more about being certified? And so I wonder if any of you can shine the light on where to go and how to get those. It's as simple as just Googling and you get a reputable company doing the certification, and that will be validated by any project. We already understand the the certifications operate by provinces, but where did you get yours, and where did you start in that process? Anybody would like to share?
So I was fortunate enough to work with StreetARToronto, and whenever on my first project with them, they had a group certification for working at heights. And same with the swing stage. So I went through Street Art Toronto. What I would do if you're not going to be working with Street Art Toronto is just Google your Ontario working at heights or swing stage training. Those are two separate, and you'll find that there's lots of options to go there. And it's a one-day course, and you'll be certified and finished right after that. So that's what I would do. Just Google it, and you'll find them all over Ontario.
Thank you so much for that, Alex. How about you, Adrian?
I got it that time. I echo that as well. You can just Google and see what's available to you. There are offshoot organizations that you can get them as well. Like it doesn't necessarily have to be as formal, but nonetheless, there are tons of options as well.
Well, that's good to know. How about you, Stephanie? Any comments on this as someone who also has done production?
Right. So I think over the years, my training has come from different places. One particular place I would say that's quite accessible, and I'm not sure if they're continuing, but I know that Mural Roots, they're a public art organization. They also offer the Working at Heights. I've done my Working at Heights training with them, and they're located in Scarborough. And then there is Worksite Safety, which you can do your aerial heights. You do have to have the practical. So you do the theory online, but you will have to find a place to do your practical to get signed off on. And then you can also do, it's called Workplace Law Consulting Inc. And this is in Vaughan, I believe. And I've done Working at Heights, aerial heights, and my swing stage operation certifications here. And just like Alex was saying, it's a day of training.
Wow, thank you so much for your generosity. You have shared so much with all of us, and I'm sure that all this information, all these experiences and all these practices that had enriched your career are now being used to be able to inform other artists, those who may be exploring mural making as part of the practice for the upcoming months and years. Time is almost up, and I would like to give the space to each one of you to share with us and something that you will tell the younger you, something that you know now that you didn't know when you started this career, something that you think is so important and you will have appreciated. Someone had come to you and tell you that. So I think this is the way in which we want to honor you and your trajectory and your career, but also take this that you know and pass it on to generations of new mural artists that are working towards, one day being able to be as high as you are, like you have been like really, really up there. And so I'm sure you are the inspiration to many, many mural artists today. They saw your work and they're like, okay, I want to do that. Who would like to start?
Okay, I'll go. I would say enjoy the journey, not the destination. Start small and work up, and have fun. I would say that doing murals is an excellent career choice for any painter and artist that wants to take their canvas work and go larger scale. Keep it professional. It's still a job, and just have fun with it and start small and keep working up until you're comfortable getting up there, and don't rush things and just have fun and don't overwork yourself.
Wonderful. It. Wonderful. That is amazing. Thank you. Adrian, go ahead.
I would say there's the only way to it is through it. And that's, by that meaning, is that literally going through the steps and losing and learning, and just going through it. It's tough. It's like anything else in life. The only way to become successful is going through the hardships that comes with it, and persevering. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it, but just kind of stick to it. Having that stick to itiveness is what got us all here, I would say. This is how we are still here.
Mhm.
So that would be what I would say to the younger me, which I kind of did, but yeah, to the younger me, then sure, continue on.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much, Stephanie.
I think I would really say to myself that it's okay to be in a place where it feels like you're walking into the abyss. I think oftentimes we want to have everything organized and have all the details and know what's in front of us. But I think sometimes stepping into that unknowing is a place of self-discovery. And I think when you can really go deeper into yourself and discover all of those gems that you might have had so much fear and so much misunderstanding or misinterpretation, I think murals and public art really helps you discover yourself and also discover the community in the world that's around you. So I would say to myself, much like my peers, keep going. At that place in that moment of fear, that's that, adrenaline telling you, keep on, don't quit. And as far as a career, I wouldn't change it for the world. I love what I do, even through the hard stuff. I absolutely love it and I wouldn't change it.
Thank you so much for your wisdom and your generosity. It has been a total pleasure to be here in this space with you all. And I would like to invite the team of Street Art, Toronto, Catherine, Jason, Julian, anything that you would like to add before we wrap up and express our gratitude to all of those who have joined us this afternoon.
I'm happy to jump in, Paola. Thank you so much. I think these conversations are really important to all of us and the work that we do. And I think we're very committed to health and safety and learning more on this journey. And we're just so honored to have artists like Stephanie and Adrian and Alex and many more that we work with also share their experiences, and we want to build that trust so that everybody feels comfortable about talking about the difficult things and the things that excite us, but also any kind of feedback to make the work better and for us to learn from our side at Street Art Toronto.
Catherine, thank you so much for your words and for your kindness. Same goes for the entire team of Street Art Toronto, Jason, Julian, and everybody that is part of the team that has contributed to these conversations, this collaboration between Street Art Toronto and MUSE Arts. It has also brought us not only closer because we have very deep conversations in what needs to happen in these spaces, but also has allowed us to learn of the wonderful people that work on this program. So thank you so much to the entire team, and our gratitude to Brittany and Marianne for supporting this process as well by offering the ISL interpretation, making sure that these conversations are reaching out more community members. To the team of MUSE Arts, thank you so much for all the hard work in making sure that we all get ready to be here, being able to share with each other, being able to be amazed and inspired by the work of each one of these wonderful artists. It is, and it has been an honor, and we look forward to next month. We have our last session in April, and so we look forward to sharing with you what we have and the artists that are coming to share their experiences and work with us. I'm wondering, Catherine, if there is anything else that you would like to say, otherwise we will be saying goodbye.
I think that I may throw this over to Adrian because I know that there might be a gallery opening show that you might want to announce, and also please follow Street Art Toronto for any other upcoming events. We host our events on Campbell, but also on our website. So super excited to share more. And over to Adrian.
Thank you so much for that. So we just had an amazing exhibition with Street Art Toronto, the boxes and barriers. It was an incredible experience sharing with the youth from the Dufferin Grove, as well as having the mini mural making projects going on as well, and engaging with the community. But what we're alluding to is the Bacon's show, Alex's show, that's opening up at my gallery where I'm at right now at Worth Gallery. He's got some amazing, incredible works that I can't wait to share with you. He can't wait to share with you, I'm sure, as well. The show is opening up tomorrow. Their address for Worth Gallery is 830 Dundas West. We're just 2 blocks west of Bathurst. And the show is from 7 to 11. The show goes on until the 12th, mind you, but tomorrow is the big day when the opening is happening.
Wonderful. What a, everything is meant to be, this is perfect timing for all of those who are actually connected. And we had so many questions. Our gratitude to the many people that were interacting in the live streaming. So we are receiving this very special invitation. And so we hope that you can join tomorrow to be able to experience the work that has been taking place in the communities. I just want to look at that. And now we have a little sneak peek of what's going to happen tomorrow, and that's beautiful. That's my favorite.
Right?
By the way, that's amazing.
It's a sneak preview.
Wow, that's what a gift. Thank you so much for that.
My pleasure.
And to everybody else, so thank you so much for joining us. Remember, if by any chance you just join us a little bit after 2 p.m., don't worry, this is going to be MUSE Arts channel very soon. And again, our gratitude, and see you soon. Thank you so much.
Ciao.